Before we get into today's video, we want to bring you word from our amazing sponsor, Established Titles. Recently, we decided to give our video editor, Nick, the title of Lord. And wow, it's gone to his head. He'll be over for lunch and we're having burgers, but he'll announce, Lord Nick only eats steak. Then he eats a steak well done with ketchup. He also keeps talking about sitting upon his throne, and I think he means his recliner chair, but I think a more suitable throne for his lordship is found in the bathroom. Actually, I'm only kidding about how Nick's changed. But what I'm not joking about is that Nick really was given the title of Lord by our wonderful sponsor, Established Titles. Established Titles is an amazing project based on the historic custom where landowners are called lairds, or lords and ladies in English. How it works is that you buy yourself or someone special, like your significant other or your pet, 1 square foot of dedicated land, and they gain the title of Lord or Lady. Not only is this a cool gift, but it's a green one because Established Titles is committed to planting a tree with every order. They work with the organizations One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. After you place your order, you get a beautiful official certification with a crest for your ownership of 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Elston, Scotland. If you're looking for gifts for several people, packages are available so you can get adjoining plots of land for you and the special people in your life. One thing that I really like about Established Titles is that you can add your title of Lord or Lady to things like credit cards and plane tickets. Also, it would be something playful to add to your dating profile. One of the coolest things that Established Titles is doing is that the first 200 people to purchase a title pack using our promo code will be placed next or around Lord Nick. If enough of us want to be lords or ladies, we can essentially make our little channel a kingdom. Established Titles is running a big sale right now, plus if you use the code Paranormally Listed, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/paranormallylisted to get your gifts now and help support the channel. Number 3. Isaac Larbi. Akuizi Abigail was a 20-year-old mother of 2. She lived in Ghana, West Africa, with her husband, Isaac Larbi. In March 2021, the two of them got into a fight, so Abigail left with her 2 children to stay with her mother. About a week later, Larbi convinced Abigail to get on his motorbike while her mom was out of the house. He told her he wanted to hang out. Abigail never returned to her mother's home, and her family never saw her again. On April 3rd, 22-year-old Isaac Larbi was arrested for stealing a motorbike. His accomplice, 23-year-old Nee Benjamin, was also arrested. While Larbi was being interrogated for the stolen bike, he confessed to killing his wife. He killed her at some point on the motorcycle trip and dumped her body in Onawasi, a farming community in the eastern region of Ghana. He told the police they had a fight. Some reports say that Abigail was planning on leaving Larbi permanently. Larbi confessed because Abigail's spirit was haunting him, especially when he would eat. He said that he'd lose his appetite out of fear that he would see her ghost. Larbi agreed to take the police to the location where he dumped the body, but the community learned of the murder and his involvement. The community gathered in a mob to go after him, so the police canceled the visit. Eventually, Abigail's body was recovered. It was mutilated, her tongue and head were removed from her body. Isaac Larbi is currently in police custody. Number 2. Jose Ferreira. In spring 1982, 13-year-old Carrie Jo Peck lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with her family. On March 16th, Carrie attended middle school. But then she was caught wandering the halls without a hall pass, so she was suspended for the rest of the day. A school official called Carrie's mother, Carolyn, and asked her if she wanted to pick up Carrie. Carolyn said that they only lived a block from the school, so Carrie could walk home. Tragically, Carrie never arrived home, so her family reported her missing. Carrie's family searched for her every day, but they never found any trace of her. On September 2nd, 1983, 17 months after Carrie went missing, the police were called to the house across the road from Carrie's family's home. A man was doing work in the yard, and he had made a disturbing discovery. Coming out of the ground below the patio was human hair. In a shallow grave under the back porch were some human remains. It was later determined that they were Carrie's remains. The remains were dressed in the same clothes Carrie was wearing when she went missing. Since Carrie's hair was so long, some of the hairs stuck out of the soil after she had been buried. The medical examiner said that the cause of death was a broken neck. Clearly, the most obvious suspects were the people who lived in the home, but they were all cleared as suspects. The police followed up with several other persons of interest, but no arrests were made. It wasn't long before the case went cold. 33 years went by and no progress was made on the case. It seemed like the case was never going to be solved. Then, on October 11, 2015, a reporter at WISN 12, the ABC affiliate in Milwaukee, received an unusual phone call. The caller was 49-year-old Jose Ferreira. He claimed to be the person who killed Carrie Jopek. He was 16 years old when it happened. On the afternoon Carrie went missing, Ferreira and some other kids were skipping school. They were having a party at the house across the road from Carrie's family's home. He thought that Carrie might have got suspended on purpose so that she could go to the party. Nevertheless, Carrie came to the party after being sent home from school. Ferreira asked Carrie if she wanted to go into the basement and smoke marijuana. She agreed, and they started walking down the stairs. Ferreira said he thought that Carrie also wanted to make out. As they got to the bottom of the stairs, Carrie had a change of heart. She said it was a mistake, and she wanted to return upstairs. Ferreira said he pushed her, and she fell down the last several steps and hit her head on the basement floor, knocking her unconscious. Ferreira said he saw what he called his opportunity, and he raped her. However, he didn't call it rape, he just said he had sex with her. When it was over, he realized that Carrie was dead. Instead of calling for help, he dragged her body out the basement door into the backyard. He found a small shovel and he went under the patio. He quickly managed to dig a hole that was a couple of feet deep. He shoved Carrie's body into the hole and covered her with dirt. He said that the whole thing took him about an hour. The reporter then asked Ferreira why he confessed after all this time. He said it was because Carrie had been haunting him for the past 33 years. Within a week of the phone call to the reporter, Ferreira was arrested. Ferreira told the police a slightly different story about what happened that afternoon. He claimed he had only fondled Carrie's breast and he had raped her. Also, the police were convinced that the murder happened the way Ferreira said it did. The medical examiner reviewed the autopsy report. He believed that Carrie was struck with a heavy object on the back of the neck. Jose Ferreira was offered a plea deal and he accepted it. On March 17, 2017, nearly 35 years to the day the 13-year-old Carrie Ann Jopek was killed, Jose Ferreira was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Carrie's mother, Carolyn, was interviewed, and she credited her daughter with solving her own murder. Carolyn had a private conversation with Ferreira, and he told her about being haunted by Carrie for 33 years. He said that he couldn't escape her. Carolyn believes that Carrie did haunt him, and she thinks that's why he confessed out of the blue after 3 decades. Number 1. Jon Venables. On February 12, 1993, Denise Bulger brought her son, James Bulger, to the Strand Shopping Centre in Bootle, Merseyside, England. James was a month shy of his 3rd birthday. Around 3:40 that afternoon, Denise let go of James's hand to pay for some items. Suddenly, she realized that James was gone. She frantically looked around for him, but he was nowhere to be found. She found security, who looked around the shopping center. When James wasn't found, the police were alerted. They looked at CCTV footage. Something disturbing caught their attention. They found images of James holding hands with someone. It appears that another young boy is the one leading him away. 2 days after 2-year-old James went missing, some children were playing near some train tracks about 2.5 miles from the shopping center. They made a gruesome discovery. It was the body of James Bulger. It was lying across the train tracks and had been cut in half. The medical examiner determined that the boy was dead when the train ran over him. James's death had been horrifying. It was clear he had been tortured before he was murdered. The pathologist found 42 injuries, including a fractured skull. Blue paint had been thrown in his face, and batteries were stuffed into his mouth. He was naked from the waist down. He had been kicked, stomped, and hit with bricks and stones. Finally, something heavy was dropped on his head. It was later determined that object was a 22-pound railway fish plate. Pathologists could not determine what injury killed the boy. The barbarity of the crime shocked the people of Britain. But the identities of the killers would shock the world. Dozens of witnesses saw 2 boys walking with James on the afternoon he was killed. One person called the police and said that her friend suspected that her son was involved in the murder. Her son and his friend had skipped school the day of the murder, and when they came home, they had blue paint on their clothes. The police decided to fingerprint and interview the 2 boys, who were 10 years old. Initially, they were only identified as Boy A and Boy B. After their trial, their identities were revealed. They were Jon Venables and Robert Thompson. In custody, the boys confessed to the murder. It appeared that Venables was the leader and Thompson was the follower. The boys had skipped school that day and shoplifted items from the shopping center. They had talked about kidnapping a boy and pushing him into oncoming traffic. They ended up kidnapping James and leading him to a canal where they dropped him on his head. Then they kept walking to the area close to where his body was found. Once there, they kicked and stomped on him. They also picked up rocks and bricks and threw them at him. Then they dropped the fish plate on his head. There was also some evidence that they had sexually abused him as well. Then they moved his body onto the train tracks, hoping to make it look like he had died when the train ran over him. Venables and Thompson were charged with murder, making them the 2 youngest people to be charged with murder in 20th century England. It was decided that both boys would be tried as adults. They went to trial in November 1993. After a 17-day trial, they were both found guilty. They were ordered to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, meaning they would be incarcerated until the courts decided they were no longer a danger to society. Many people wanted them to remain in prison for the rest of their lives, but that didn't happen. Both boys served about 8 years and were released in June 2001. Upon release, they were given new identities. Since getting out of prison, Robert Thompson has stayed out of the news. Jon Venables has continued to get into trouble with the law for committing disturbing crimes. In 2010, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison for possession of child pornography. Then he was sent back to prison for 40 months in February 2018. Over 1,000 images of child pornography were found on his computer. In the November 2008 documentary, James Bulger, New Revelations, it was revealed that James Bulger haunted Jon Venables. After each day of trial, Venables immediately had to get out of his clothes because he thought his clothes smelled like a baby. He said, "I could smell James like a baby smell." He also frequently asked his parents if they thought James was in the courtroom. Venables also thought that James was growing inside of him. He thought he could make things right if he gave birth to him. Jon Venables wasn't the only one to be haunted by James Bulger. James's mother, Denise, says that the ghost has visited her several times. In January 2018, Denise was promoting her memoir, I Let Him Go, on the British talk show Loose Women. She said that one day she was cleaning the bathroom sink in her nightgown. Suddenly, she felt someone tug on her nightgown. At first, she thought it was her son Michael, who was born after James was murdered. But when she looked, there was no one there. It turned out that Michael had been downstairs with his cousin. So Denise believes it was her late son, James. She said that this was just one of several encounters where she believes the ghost of James had visited her. She said she always thinks of James as a little boy and can't picture what he might have looked like as a young adult. Although Denise knows that James was taken from her too soon, she still appreciates the time she spent with him and cherishes the memories she has of him. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.